The spark of justice. There is a strange moment, a moment that does not often occur in a human life, a moment when a person sees the world in all its ugliness and feels that silence is a crime and standing idly by is a betrayal. That moment was the beginning of everything for Light Yagami. In his heart, there wasn't a desire to kill, but a desire for purification. He wanted to create a world free of corruption, a world that wouldn't need police or courts, because justice would be in the hands of one person only, someone who sees the truth without bias, without weakness. But can a human be a god without turning into a devil? Justice driven by noble intentions, when nourished by absolute power, begins to slowly transform, like a fire that starts with a beautiful warmth, then burns everyone who approaches it. And here, the spark of justice that would consume the world was born. The birth. He cannot stop time with his mind alone. A human cannot remain free from consequences merely because he thinks himself above mankind. Every name he wrote was a step towards a new God, but it was also a step towards his ultimate downfall. The justice he created with his own hands began to slowly turn into a cruel deity, imposing its rule on those it deemed unworthy. Absolute justice. He began by killing criminals one after another. The world was afraid, but it felt safe. Here begins the philosophy. Is the fear of evil more important than the existence of justice? In the beginning, he wrote the names while trembling. He wasn't sure if what he was doing was good or evil. But when he saw the criminals fall one wrong, the moment of his first fall begins. He started to doubt those around him, his friends, his family, even his father who raised him on the meaning of justice. They were no longer allies, but potential threats to the order he had built. He started using death as a tool to maintain his image, not justice itself. He began to control hearts before controlling souls, planting fear to maintain belief in him. And thus, Light transformed from a creator of justice into a slave to a power he couldn't stop exercising. He forgot that justice unrestrained by conscience is merely a new face of oppression. The moment of exposure. Light's fall was not a single moment, but thousands of small moments he ignored. The looks of doubt around him, the questions he couldn't answer, and the voices that began to whisper his name instead of Kira. For years, he thought he controlled everything, that he had written the ending before the game even began. But he forgot that the eyes he was watching had started watching him too. With every name he wrote, he was writing a new line in his confession. Every death brought him one step closer to his own end. And when he finally faced Nier and Matsuda, he wasn't seeing his enemies, but seeing a reflection of himself. The justice he created with his own hands turned into a sword pointed at his own chest. Everything he did was driven by good intentions, but the result was a complete void. Because the good that is imposed by force breeds new evil every time. And in that moment when he was exposed to everyone, Light realized that he was not a god, but a man who believed his own lie too much. The death of the god. A god does not die unless he remembers he was once a human. Light Yagami did not die when he was shot, but died when he realized that everything he had done had changed nothing. Humans were still killing, and injustice still filled the world. But he himself was no longer there to justify it to himself. For years, he believed that the Death Note was the path to justice, but he didn't realize that the notebook was nothing but a mirror. Every name he wrote was merely a new projection of his inner shadows. And as he fell down the stairs, his blood slowly draining, he was not running from the police, but running from the truth. The truth that Ryuk whispered from the beginning, "I don't side with anyone. My time has come now." In the end, the God who wanted to purify the world of evil became the very evil he wanted to eliminate. And so the story ended, not with the triumph of justice, nor the triumph of Kira, but with the triumph of balance. The legacy of Kira. After Kira's death, the world did not breathe a sigh of relief. It paused for a moment. Every person who watched the news, every eye that followed the downfall of that human god, was not witnessing the end of a villain, but the collapse of an idea. The idea that justice can be created from fear, and that order can be imposed by force, not by conscience. Kira died, but his impact was not buried with him. For years afterward, people still spoke of him in whispers. Some saw him as a monster, and some saw him as a misunderstood hero. But the truth is, Kira was a giant mirror placed in front of this world, and everyone saw their own reflection in it. In the hearts of the weak, he was a symbol of salvation. In the hearts of the powerful, he was a warning against arrogance. Light Yagami proved something simple and terrifying at the same time, that when a human possesses absolute power, he no longer seeks justice, but the only difference is the story he tells himself before he sleeps. Today, long after his departure, the notebook still symbolizes something greater than Kira himself. It symbolizes a dormant idea within all of us, the desire to rearrange this world with our own hands, to determine who deserves to live and who does not. But the real question was never, was what Kira did right or wrong? Rather, how long would it take before we did the same thing if we were in his place? Kira did not completely die. He lives in everyone who believes that their good intentions justify their oppression. He lives in everyone who appoints themselves as judge, forgetting that they too are accountable. In the end, justice does not need a magical notebook, nor a god to rule over humans. It only needs a human being who remembers that power does not create truth, and that light, no matter how pure, can burn if it forgets where it came from. Perhaps this is his true legacy, to make us ask ourselves, if the death note were placed in our hands, how long would it take before we become a new Kira?